Oh boy, all right, we're late. Here we go. Sorry, I was just fiddling. Good morning. Hey, everybody. We are in John chapter 18. We're in John 18. Pray. Ask God for help this morning. Jimmy, can you pray for us?
Pray that you would bless this time. Pray that you would heal yourself and heal your son. Heal right. Love.
Amen. John 18, we're in the last half of the chapter. Jason, on Tuesday, from what I understand, walked through the trials of Jesus. I see this kind of like, yeah, it's kind of, maybe I wasn't here for, I didn't watch it, but I heard he walked through those, showing kind of some of the parallel accounts, basically the Jewish trials, so that where we are in the story is Jesus has fulfilled his ministry. He's been betrayed. He's been taken to the religious leaders, and they want him dead. We need to shut this man up. It's time to kill him. They've been plotting this for a long time. They've been longing for this moment, and now's the time to kill him. They want to do it at this time of the year because there's a huge crowd because it's Passover, and they want everybody to see this man who has been leading so many astray in their estimation is indeed a criminal, and he needs to be shamed and executed publicly so that everybody knows what happens if you stand up against the religious leaders. You don't mess with the mafia. And we're going to publicly shame and execute this man. The problem is that they can't crucify anybody. Jews are not allowed to do that. So they have to work with the existing government, the Roman government, to execute Jesus. And the way you've got to do this is you've got to convince the Roman government that whoever this is that's in trouble is a threat to Rome. And in order to do that, they've simply got to say that Jesus is claiming that he is what? He's a king. Because there's no king but Caesar. That's the motto. So what they've got to do is they've got to say, Pilate, here's the deal. You've got an insurrectionist on your hand who is claiming to be a king, and this is about to get ugly. He's about to lead everybody here in Jerusalem in a revolt against Rome. He says, don't pay taxes. He says, we're going to tear down the temple. He says, he's a king. And in light of that, you better shut this thing up. Otherwise, you're going to have a mess on your hands. Now, you remember that Rome rules the world at this time. Well, God rules the world, and he's allowed Rome to have a couple chapters here. So Rome rules the world, and they have governors established by Caesar throughout the Roman world. In Jerusalem, there's a governor, and his name is Pilate. Pilate he's the governor over this region. And his job is to collect taxes, ensure peace, and to keep allegiance to Caesar prominent. That's basically his job. So he sees this, so Passover would be a time of a little bit anxiety for him because all these Jews are coming in and they're doing their thing. As long as they stay in order, things are fine. But they get rowdy, we got an issue, and he doesn't want that. So that's kind of what's swirling in the air. Jesus has been betrayed. He's gone, as Jason, I think, showed you, he's gone to various sorts of religious authorities, and they really can't charge him with anything. They have to bring in false witnesses to be able to lie because they've really got nothing on him. He's like, for which good work did you just hit me? For what thing did I ever do? Like he's like, you've got nothing on me. So of anybody who's ever been through like the mockery of the justice system, you can see Jesus understands that. He sympathizes in great, with great experience, right? He's been through, when you count them all up, 6 different sorts of trials where there's been all sorts of injustice. Jason came up to me over there. He's like, I told him that I had 7 injustices that happened during the trials, and I have them written down in my Bible. And I was like, can I see the list? He's like, I don't have it. I was like, oh, well, there you go. So I don't have it either. I was like, I don't have it either. Thanks for telling me that. Anyway, so I'm gonna see if he can give me that list, and we can pass it along to you. But yeah, I'm sure there's even more than that. It was clear that they've got nothing on Jesus because he's done nothing wrong. But darkness hates the light, and he is exposing it. So John doesn't give us as much information about what happened with the Jewish court. He gives us more about what's happening in the Roman, with the Roman ruler, Pilate. We get much more on Pilate here in John's gospel than we do in any of the other gospels. And again, John writing for the whole world, this would be of great interest to the whole world. So that's kind of even part of the reason that he emphasizes this in the way that he did. So we are going to pick it up in verse. Let's just start in verse 28 through 32. Somebody read for us 28 through 32.
Then they led Jesus from the house of Caiaphas to the governor's headquarters. It was early morning. They themselves did not enter the governor's headquarters so that they would not be defiled, but could eat the Passover. So Pilate went outside to them and said, "What accusation do you bring against this man?" They answered him, "If this man were not doing evil, we would not have delivered him over to you." Pilate said to them, "Take him yourselves and judge him by your own law." The Jews said to him, "It is not lawful for us to put anyone to death." This was to fulfill the word that Jesus had spoken to show by what kind of death he was going to die.
Okay. At such a weighty time, it's hard to not, with the weight of this text, it feels almost wrong to smile when you read this, but it's hard not to see the thick irony that is so grotesque that it's almost funny. Just tell me what you notice here in 28 through 32. They take Jesus from Caiaphas, they bring him to the governor's headquarters. This is to Pilate's crib. All right. It was early morning, and then tell me about the end of verse 28 there. Yeah. Because they want to what? They want to eat the Passover meal, but they can't go inside what? Because he's a what? He's a Gentile. You can't go inside the Gentile's house. We got to keep the law. We got to keep the law here. So we can't go into a Gentile's house lest we bump into something unclean. And then we wouldn't be able to eat the Passover meal. So we've got to keep the law so that we can be honoring to God. So they're standing outside the door so they don't defile themselves. And they're trying to get him to come and trying to get Pilate to crucify the Son of God. So they don't want to become unclean. Well, right. That's exactly what you're supposed to feel. You're supposed to be like, I actually like Pilate more than I like these guys, right? Man, just give me some bad, pagans rather than bad religious people. Bad religious people feel so much worse, right? I mean, and this is the stuff that you've got to know. Jesus hated this stuff, right? If you read Matthew 23, Jesus is coming out with all those woes against the religious leaders. This is what we see in this paragraph would be like a great example, if a great cross reference, if you're teaching on the you strain at a gnat but swallow a camel. Remember that teaching of Jesus? What did it mean? You strain at a gnat but you swallow a camel. Anybody know what that means? Great. So you're not supposed to eat a gnat, okay, because it's an unclean thing. What else is unclean? A camel's unclean as well. So he says, you guys will, if a little gnat flies in your juice, you will get your juice cup, you'll get a screen, put it over another thing, you'll pour it in so the gnat gets strained out, then you'll drink your juice. You'll go through all of that because, but you drink down a camel, which is another unclean animal. Meaning you're missing the bigger issues. You don't love people. You're immoral. You're oppressive. You stand outside a Gentile's house so you don't get your feet unclean while you're trying to kill the Son of God. Like this is an example of straining a gnat. You keep all the little meticulous religious stuff, but you miss the heart of the law. The heart of the law is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbors yourself. You're disobeying both of those right now by doing what you're doing. They're straining at a gnat here and swallowing down a camel. It's amazing how often these religious leaders just fulfill the teaching of Jesus and just prove him to be right more and more every step of the way. All they do with their disobedience and their rebellion is prove that Jesus is actually exactly right the whole time. And what Kelly felt is what you're supposed to feel. You're supposed to be like, these guys are bad. They're bad. Like, again, give me a corrupt Gentile pagan. That makes sense. But when you get somebody who comes in with all the religious, like, I'm a religious leader, and they're corrupt, it's super confusing and enraging. That's why God hates it so much. People who use his name in vain to pad their own pockets. I was thinking about that with study for Titus a little bit last night for the boot camp on Friday with Titus. You see people who are they're trying to pad their pockets by using God's name. God hates that stuff. We want to eat the Passover, so we can't get defiled. So Pilate went outside to them and said, "What's your accusation against this man?" Right. So what did this guy do? You're waking me up. So it's early in the morning, like 5:30, whatever, something like that. Pilate's like, "Yeah, I'm up watching Sports Center. What are you doing?" And he's like, "They're like, we've got this guy, and we need you to kill him." And he's like, "What did he do?" Verse 30. Tell me what you see in verse 30. This is hard not to laugh at. They answered him, "If this man were not doing evil, we would not have delivered him over to you." He's like, "What did he do?" Like, "Don't worry about what he did. Doesn't matter what he did. Just kill him." I'm like, what? I mean, even Pilate, a Roman pagan, he's like, "What are you talking about? What's wrong with you people?" I mean, don't worry about evidence. Just trust our accusations. That's stuff, right? There's no evidence here at all. What do? Don't worry about it. Like that's nothing but corruption. And the reason they say don't worry about it is because what? They've got nothing. They're like, well, let's pull out the notes. Nothing, right? I mean, they've got nothing on him. Pilate said, "Take him yourselves and judge him by your own law." So he's like, listen, take him to your own courts, which they've done, but nothing's come of it. You said, "It is not lawful for us to put anyone to death." We can't do this in your jurisdiction here. It's not lawful. Now again, notice here, they're concerned about what? They want to put him to death. That's their aim. Yeah, they want to be law keepers. We keep the rules. Again, straining at a gnat and swallowing down a camel. This was to fulfill the word that Jesus had spoken to show what kind of death he was going to die. I think this refers to simply his prophecy that he was going to be betrayed as he goes through here by the people that he came to save. I think it's important to notice here. Actually, I was on sabbatical one time. I heard Nick Roark preach on this text, and he had a great line. He said, "Hypocrisy is a vice adorned in virtue." That's what hypocrisy does. It dresses up nicely. It shows itself as being polite and kind, and and every culture has this in different ways. But that's evil dressed up in niceties is not. Doesn't stop it from being evil. It actually just shows all the more how evil it is. Anybody, any thoughts on 28 through 32?
Reading when Stephen was stoned.
I'm not 100% sure exactly. I was thinking about that myself as I was working through here. I don't know if it is. I don't think it's set aside to a feast or anything, because you have. I don't think that's it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly, to be honest with you. I'd be starting to make something up. I'd be happy to hear if somebody has a better answer. I was thinking about that this morning as I was listening to it on the way in, and I was like, I'm not sure. So thank you for asking that. I will make a note to look at it. Any other questions I can't answer? I think for a bunch of religious people like us, which you are a religious person, if you're up studying the Bible at 6:30 in the morning, this is kind of what we do. There's good religion, there's bad religion. Just remember, just be careful. I hope none of us are as sinister in our religion as these guys are. But just know we're all tempted on that spectrum. We're all tempted to use religious niceties to cover up evil. So it's easy to look at these guys and be like, I hate what they're doing. These are the kind of people that need to die. Don't think that that's not in you too. It's in all of us to use religious failing to accomplish what we want. To take the Lord's name in vain in that way. There's 10,000 ways that you can do that. I'd be interested to hear maybe a couple ways you think we could be tempted in that way. What are some ways that you think you can be tempted, or we can be tempted? With that sort of hypocrisy of using religion while at the same time furthering evil purposes. What do you think that can happen in the church or in you? Okay. For instance, if you turn your volume up just a little bit, so St. Karen.
The first thing that comes to mind is like the interpretation of the gospel. The gospel is very, but also the more legalistic.
Good. Yes, I think there's ways that you can use the Bible to kind of further your own sinful lusts, right? So I want to love the world, and I'm just going to put Bible verses on it and said, Jesus wants me to have the abundant life, so I get to be covetous and greedy and not generous and all of that kind of stuff, and hyper self-focused. Okay. Yeah. How else would you be tempted?
And close to the
Good. Yeah, so you secretly kind of are doing whatever you want. You have your little pet sins over here, but because you're reformed in whatever degree you are, because you're a conservative Baptist in whatever degree you are, like that sort of cloak of I do religious things and I, or even in tied to that same sort of way as like, well, grace, God will forgive me, and you just kind of use that, you abuse gospel grace in order to just keep doing what you want to do, really, right? Yeah. Good. Yeah. Good. Yeah, there's a self-righteousness that can actually have the same sort of venom as an unbeliever who's in their own sin. Yeah. It's good. There's a number of guys in here who aspire to be elders, or sisters who are gifted in teaching and giving leadership to other within the body. Just want to encourage you to be careful about using religious front to be able to just control people and have people kind of do what you want them to do. That's a real temptation. That's why a lot of pastors, and power, it's a thing. Sisters who are well esteemed, who it's the power, they love people looking to them, those sorts of things. You just got to know that can get really dangerous and deadly. So may we see the grotesqueness of this. May we say that's super wicked, and may we also at the same time never forget that's in me too. So Lord help us, right? Somebody 33 through the end, please. Well, 33, 33 through the end, through 40.
Answer, do you say this of your own accord, or did others say it to you about me? Pilate answered, am I a Jew? Your own nation and chief priests have delivered you over to me. What have you done? Jesus answered, my kingdom is not this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would have been fighting back. I might not be delivered over to the Jews, but my kingdom is not from this world. And Pilate answered, you are a king? Jesus answered, you say that I'm a king. For this purpose I was born, and for this purpose I have come to the world, to bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth. Pilate said, what is truth? After he had said this, he went back outside to the Jews and told them, I don't know. You have a custom that I should release one man for you as a passover. So do you want me to release you to you, the king of the Jews? They cried out to him, not this man, but Barabbas.
Good. So after Pilate goes out and tells them, judge them by your own law, and they say, we can't put anybody to death, he goes back into his headquarters here, and he has a consultation with Jesus. So I know most of us have forgotten about kind of the encounters kind of approach here. I haven't done a good job highlighting as we go through. I've titled this one "The Encounter with the Executioner." So you have this man who has worldly authority to put Jesus to death, and we have this encounter here. And his question is, "Are you the king of the Jews?" So this is the charge. Remember, again, these religious leaders know what is going to set Rome off. And what's going to set Rome off is somebody else is claiming to be Lord, right? So Lord is king. So he asks them, "Are you the king of the Jews?" I love Jesus so much. Verse 34, what's Jesus say? He's going to say, 1 second there, read that again. Read 34. What's he asking? This for you? This for you? Like, Jesus is evangelizing him. I think is what he's doing. He's like, "Are you asking? Is this a political question or a personal?" You know, I mean, Jesus sitting there all bloodied up and just looking at this guy in the eye. This is one of the things about the Lord. You'll watch him as he's going to the cross. He's taking as many people with him as he can. He's like, "Well, you want to go with me?" Like, who are you asking for? You asking for yourself? This is a personal question. Over here. Are you get some authority, right? You know, are you just, is this for you? Or is this what others said? Right? Pilate answered, "Am I a Jew?" Meaning what? What's he doing? Yeah. Or do I care about your stuff? I'm a Roman. That's some stupid, dirty Jew. He's like, "I don't care about your kingly world," right? But as we watch this, so there's a lot of speculation in church history that Pilate ends up getting saved. The early church tradition says that he does. I think it's hopeful thinking. I don't know that there's really any evidence for it. But I think one of the reasons is because you watch him squirm. I think deep down he knows this guy's done nothing wrong. He knows that, and he's conflicted. But you're going to watch him as we go through this. He's going to fall into a trap that many people in his position do. So we'll see that here in a second. Am I a Jew? Your own nation and the chief priests have delivered you over to me. What have you done? Now, Jesus answers here in verse 36 in a way that either sounds absolutely crazy, or it's true. So this is either, the old C.S. Lewis, he's liar, lunatic, or Lord. You've got to figure out which one Jesus is. He either made this whole thing up and he's just a liar, or he's crazy, like legit. I mean, this is kind of stuff crazy people say, right? Or it's true. And if it's true, then you got to deal with it, right? And the only reason we think it's true is there's a lot of people in history who claim this kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know how many, people you've talked to who are just kind of on the streets, and there's a gentleman that lives next to our that camps out near our house, and he has illusions of grandeur, and people say this sort of stuff. So this would not be the only person in history who's claimed to be like a god or something like that, right? This guy rose from the dead, which nobody else does that. And that's what proves it is true. So if he doesn't rise from the dead, he's a crazy guy who just needed to be handed over and executed because of all the things that he's stirred up the blasphemy. But Jesus says, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would have been fighting that I might not be delivered over to the Jews. But my kingdom is not of this world." Jesus says, "Pilate, what do you not see happening? except for that one incident that we won't mention with Peter. What's not happening? Yeah. He's like, have you seen the crowds? Thousands of people follow me. What they're not doing is bringing an insurrection.
Yeah.
What they're not doing is standing outside your house with swords about to kill you. Because my kingdom is not of this world. Where I'm from, we don't do things like that. Where I'm from, power is not in the sword. It's in the word, which symbolically is a sword. It's in truth. It's in reality. That's where the power is. It's in the word. So he says something here that's going to click with Pilate, because any other insurrectionist is going to do what? A fight. You know, I mean, it's Braveheart time, right? Going to pick a fight, right? That's sort of a terrible accent, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you're going to pick a fight. That's what you do. We're going to throw this thing, and that is what everybody wanted Jesus to do, right? They all expected he's going to come in and he is going to lead a charge, and we're going to take over Rome. We're going to put Rome down. That's what they expected. And that's what they needed. And one day the Lord Jesus will return to do that with above all other kings. But he says his kingdom is not of this world. So pause. This, by the way, is one of the reasons that, just if you're doing apologetics with someone who brings up the Crusades, you can just say whatever the Crusades were, they weren't Christian. You have people who are using religious words and jargon and slogans in order to further bloodlust and to further desire for power. You can't convert somebody with a sword. You can't make somebody Christian. It's one of the reasons I think trying to legislate a Christian nation is a terrible idea. You can't legislate conversions. Like, that's how you, I mean, we've tried that in history and it never ends well. Like, the gospel is the only thing that changes people. Yeah.
Like, he's really weird.
Yeah.
And like Christians, you're really confused. Churches, the revelation kind of comes down, Christians start to get more.
Well, I mean, I think there's a couple of reasons that Christians will miss it. Well, Christians, people who claim to be Christians will miss it. One is an one is an overrealized eschatology, which is one of the things you're mentioning here, where, you know, we want to bring in Christendom, and, you know, with sort of the theme of you know, power at all costs or whatever. Another is kind of an I'm trying to think of the right word. I mean, think of American history, right? We're going to the new, I mean, the way they talked about America was the new, it's the promised land. So we're going to, with the gospel, cross over to the promised land, and in the promised land, there are Canaanites who live here, and we've got to either make them servants or kill them off. That's what happened with the Native Americans. And we are going to establish Christendom here. I mean, that's the history of this country, right? And it's just, and they would use the book of Joshua in a way that you're not supposed to use the Bible. They misunderstood themselves as the true Israel and all that kind of stuff. So I think there's lots of weird ways that people can read and apply the Bible that get you into that kind of mess. And that said, I think there can be also just well-intended, theologically in our same camp, folks who can just overestimate, overemphasize the need for trying to influence government to do right. And I think, listen, anybody who has opportunity should influence the government to do right. I just think there's ways that we can, we can wrongly do that ultimately are going to produce not a better situation. So I want righteous laws in our land to the glory of God. At the same time, you can't legislate conversion. You can't do that. So to try and get people to, like what Constantine did, like, okay, we're going to change the whole nation now is going to be Christian. Everybody's a Christian now. Like, no, they're not. They just, they're not converted. That's not gonna end. So, which again, I think is not to blame her, Paedo-Baptist friends for, problems in religious problems in America, but this is why you don't start a colony and say everybody's going to baptize your children. Now everybody's members of a church, and everybody's just religious. This is how you get that sort of weird religion where the whole town's a Christian. I don't think that's true. I mean, everybody was baptized as a child and a member of a church, and but like that doesn't mean they're all Christians. That's why you baptize Christians and let them stand out from the culture and say, we're going to follow Jesus. It can be, yeah. Sometimes it can be very, well intended, and they're right on all kinds of other stuff. But I think there's ways it can go very wrong that can be cultish, for sure. All that to say here, his kingdom is not of this world. And Pilate said, so you are a king. And Jesus answered, you say that I am a king. For this purpose I was born, and for this purpose I have come into the world, to bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth listens to my voice. Very John 10-ish, with I am the good shepherd, and my sheep hear my voice, right? And Pilate with the great question, 38. What is truth? Now, what's the irony about that question? Very postmodern for someone who's quite a ways from that. But what is truth? What's ironic about that? Truth is right in front of him, in the flesh. What is truth? Him. He's the way, the truth, and the life. The irony here is thick. Truth is in front of him, and he can't see it. By the way, remember, seeing is not always believing. You can see and not see. You can hear and not hear. Pilate is having a conversation with the incarnation of truth, and he asks him point blank, what's truth? He can't see it. He's blind. After he said this, he went back in outside to the Jews and told them, I find no guilt in him. And then he says, but you have a custom. Now, one of the things that a governor would have to do of whatever region he's in is to learn the customs of the religious practices and all this kind of stuff as a way of helping to facilitate and manage peace in the town. Because again, you can worship any god you want as long as you acknowledge that Caesar is Lord and do your incense thing to him and all that kind of stuff. So he knows their customs. A good governor is going to be able to be he's a politician. He knows how to please the people and keep everybody happy. He says, you guys have a custom. So evidently during Passover, there was a custom that would set a prisoner free, very symbolic of what the Passover was intended to do, that, because there was one who was sacrificed in your place, that there is liberation, and praise God, that's what he's come to do. He's a delivering God, right? Well, he says, and again, you can see Pilate feels, even him, and he's not a good dude. You can read up in history. He was a corrupt, immoral, he was a bad dude. He was a Roman pagan governor in all the ways that you can think about that means. It's there. But you could tell he bothered here. And so he's, again, trying to find a way out, it appears. And he comes out and he says, let's talk about your custom. And the custom is that I should release a man for you at the Passover. So do you want me to release to you the king of the Jews? this guy in whom I haven't found anything wrong. You guys don't have any real charges. You just do the like trust me card. And I've examined him. I don't know. He might be crazy, but he certainly isn't like what you're saying he is. How about we let him go? And their response is what? Not him, but we want whom? Bar-Abbas. Bar-Abbas. Anybody know any Hebrew? You know what that means? Son of the Father. Bar, son, Abbas, father, son of your father. You want me to release the son of the Father, son of God, or do you want me to release to you the son of the Father? Again, I think the irony is intended to be thick here. You have two sons of the Father. Go ahead. Yeah, when you read the other gospel accounts, he actually is doing what they charged Jesus with. He's legitimately leading revolts. He is a liar. He is a robber. He is a thief. He is stirring up murder. So he is the one he's the son of the Father who's actually guilty of all the crimes. And then you have the son of the Father who's guilty of none of the crimes. He's innocent of them all. Well, what's going to happen is that the son of the Father who is not guilty is going to be put to death, and the son of the Father who is guilty is going to be set free. Again, quite picturesque of what's happening here in the gospel. So in this scene, it's easy to more align with Jesus in your mind, be like, I think I'm more like him, when actually the picture is we're like Barabbas. We deserve death. We should be the ones who die, but this one goes in our place, just like the Passover. The innocent lamb dies so that you can be delivered from death. Pardon? It's divine justice. It's the only way it happens is that somebody's got to pay for sins, and it's either going to be you or someone who is innocent in your place. That's what's happening. Any comments or questions on anything in 28 through the end of the chapter there? Comments, questions, applications, reflections? Yeah.
Why do you think the time is, you can't, why doesn't he just let it go? Why does he pass this change?
Great question.
It's political or it's used to.
100%. Yes. So let's find it here. Actually, let's just go ahead and read it. Let's answer this question. Somebody read for us verses 1 through 11. Actually, pause. Sorry, this is a very important section, but it's even the answer is not there. It's in verse 12. Just go ahead and read verse 12. Sorry.
You are everyone
This is the issue. The reason he won't let him go is because what? Scared of what? People. Proverbs 29:25 says, the fear of man lays a snare. He is he's a coward who's more concerned about the affirmation of someone in authority and influence. He's more concerned about his own political career. He's more concerned about his own public image than he is about what's right and what's true and about what pleases God. This is the snare all the way through the Bible. Can you think of another time that this happened in a gospel? a political leader who, because of people, did the same exact thing that Pilate's about to do? With JTB, remember John the Baptist? Herod, remember the way John the Baptist died? Herod's having a little party. Somebody sends out the girls to do a little dance for him. And he says, girl, half the kingdom, anything you want. What do you want? And she goes over and her Satan incarnate mother says, I want the head of John the Baptist. She goes back, I want John's head. And he knew he shouldn't do it, but he says, but because of the people, bring me the head. He knew. Listen, y'all, feared man it's a powerful thing. It makes evil people and God's people do some crazy stuff. Just remember, make decisions that you will be thankful for 10,000 years from now. You will not be sorry that you aligned with Jesus. So, like, what should have happened here is he should have said, you know what? I don't know, he should have said it this way, but well, to hell with Pilate then, I'm with this guy. I think he's true. He is the truth. He is the king. I'm going with him. That's what he should have said. But just good. He loved the world, laws and affirmation, and claim and position and authority. It was just too much. So that's why. So, then Lord help us. Anything else on this section that we did 28 through 40? Great question. Yep. Yep. Turn it up just a little bit. Yep. Yep. That's a great text, John 3:19 through 20. I mean, for Pilate and for all these guys, just imagine, there's so much on the line here. It's really hard. You got to give up everything if you're going to be with this Jesus guy. I mean, and even Peter, one of his most faithful followers, just couldn't do it. Like in the moment, I don't know him. Just there's fear. This is why Satan deals in fear. He wants you to be afraid. Like that is the main sort of everything is wrapped up in fear in some way, shape, or form. Satan wants you to be afraid because fear is the exact opposite of faith, right? Faith is a trust and a willingness to act upon that trust in surrender to the Lord, where fear is self-preservation and trying to control and manipulate circumstances to avoid whatever pain, embarrassment, whatever. Satan loves to deal in fear. That's his primary currency in his portfolio. Yep. Great question. So Greg asked an excellent question of how can we say that fear is the opposite of faith when Proverbs says fear is the beginning of wisdom. So there's an appropriate fear and there's an inappropriate fear. Satan deals with an inappropriate fear. Satan wants you to fear anything but God. So he's dealing in that sort of alternate fear, whereas everybody's gonna fear something. And it's either gonna be God or whatever else. So the fear of God is the right fear that puts all other fears in their place. It tells all other fears to sit down. So I could be more accurate. So not all fears are how Satan deals, but there's one fear that Satan will never ever tempt you with, and that's to fear God. Other than there's wrong ways he might tempt you to fear him, just to think that, oh, God hates you, you should be scared of him, never talk to him, those kinds of things. But even that's not the true fear of God. That's a counterfeit fear of God for the Christian. So does that make sense? Good question.
Since last week. Moving back to our side of the nine nature and it's a good.
Oh, good question. So is Caiaphas speaking like as a prophet of the Lord? I don't think so. I think sometimes, yeah, well, blind idiots can say true things and God can use it in his irony. So what he meant it for, Caiaphas didn't mean it as this man should be the Lamb of the God who takes away the sin of the world. He meant it in John the Baptist way. He meant it as let's kill this one dude so the whole town doesn't burn itself down. Or, let's kill this one guy so everybody doesn't have to die because Rome will come in and kill us. And the Lord's like, well, look you here. Like, that's ironic. Maybe that's what I'm doing. So but not in the way that he meant it. So he actually said words that he meant to mean one thing, but this is a great example even of how the Lord will take what's intended for evil and use it for good. So he even with that statement intends it for evil. Let's kill Jesus so that, don't burn the town so everybody doesn't die. Well, actually, Jesus is going to be killed so that everybody doesn't die, but not in the way that Caiaphas meant. Does that make sense? Great. Yo.
Okay, so then I think you back, that. Place. And then it's here and all these people are saying. Once you know that, we just see like for this on of God. Is responsible for development, like the best case scenario. There's been more people going to do this in the thought because they would like
I think everyone is acting on their own will here. They're doing what they want to do. When God supersedes that by extending mercy is when people are liberated to change even what they want to do and are free to see. So they're not pawns. God's allowing them to do whatever they want to do. And God knows exactly what people want to do. And he allows them to do wicked things to further a good purpose. And then he will, open eyes and extend in mercy that will, continue to unfold plans and change even what people want and desire. So if everybody gets what they want, if God doesn't intervene, everybody goes to hell. So we need intervening mercy. So they're not they're not pawns. God though is using, it's more jujitsu, where they're doing this and God is redirecting their actions in order to fulfill his purposes, which is different than just robots. They're not robots. They're three beings who are making decisions based upon what they want to do. And then you have a sovereign God who's using all of that, which is amazing that he can do that with everybody to further good purposes and get more mercy to more people. And then I would just say the other reason we should not read it that way is that's just never the way that God presents himself as a puppeteer or as the video game player. Like that is something that we import and impute to God rather than the way that God reveals himself. In the same way that if someone comes up and accuses you of being a certain way, just because that's what they see things that happen in your life and they accuse you of being a certain way, you feel a certain, you're like, that's not me. Well, I would just say in the same way, Satan would want us to think of God in cold, distant, controlling, with heartless intent, sort of just only for his own glory, void of any kind of good for you perspective, where that's the exact opposite. Where God certainly wants to be glorified because it's in the glorification that we get the most joy and happiness. So it is for our good. So does that make sense? So I think anytime you're tempted to see things that way, just say, God, help me to see things as you say they are and as they truly are, rather than, I think a way we're all tempted to in various ways to think of him as not really good and not really loving and intimately, personally involved. Maybe one more. Yeah.
We know this is a long trajectory to go on to the connection. Part of Garrett's heart. Here, why would you just keep that? Your opinions. Why did that?
Yeah. So when you read, so if you're going to read the same, let's say Pilate, the same way you're reading Pharaoh, I think they're actually really good. It's a good connection. I think God's dealing with them both in the same exact way. It's not like God's restraining these guys from believing. Like, no, don't believe. I got stuff to do. No. It's not like that at all. These are already wicked men who desire to further their own kingdoms and purposes, that when glory comes upon them, their hearts are hardened by glory because they love the darkness rather than the light, and they're going to do whatever they can. Pharaoh seems more sinister in his not that Pilate's not sinister, but like it comes out a little different because they're different people, but it's the same thing. Pilate and Pharaoh I think it's an excellent example of the same thing. Their hearts are hard. They are evil. They do want to protect their kingdom and their glory. And they're going to try to do whatever they can to make it happen. But we should not read that as God's up here just like, no, you won't believe. God doesn't take innocent or neutral people and manipulate them to make them do bad things so he can further good purposes. He takes people who are evil and intent on evil and are seeking to do their own, and he will use those for good purposes, and then sometimes save them. So this is where we'll pause for this week. Lord willing, we'll come back on Tuesday and pick up in chapter 19. Don't forget Bible Boot Camp this weekend. Titus on Friday night and Philemon on Saturday morning. If you have any questions about either of those books, emails to me are really helpful in this time of preparation, so I can know, oh yeah, you want to talk about this? I'm happy to try and drop it in there. Yeah, so I'm sure we'll have some interesting conversations on Saturday about slavery and trajectories of Christian thought and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so pray for that if you will. I'm going to pray for it now. Father, thank you for your word, and we thank you for Jesus, who is truth. Thank you that we, sons of the Father, who are like Barabbas, have hope because of the Son of the Father who was faithful. We pray that you would help us to be on guard against the very temptations that the religious leaders that Pilate fell into, rushed into in some cases. And Lord, we pray that you would help us to be holy and humble. And would you help us today as we face the temptation and the fear of man and the lure of the world? Would you help us to be on guard? Would you give us sober minds and hearts to see things as they truly are? Lord, and in Jesus.